It started with the ring. She said it was for the role. Something about symbolism. Something about how her character was a young wife questioning the institution of marriage and that the director wanted the audience to notice the absence. You know, subtextually. Right. We'd been married 8 years at that point. Enough time for the shine to wear off, for the routines to calcify, and for me to understand the difference between artistic commitment and whatever this was. She was cast in a local theater production called A Season for Grace. Small-town ensemble thing. One of those emotionally raw but still family-friendly shows where the wine is fake, the conflicts are tidy, and someone always has a change of heart by Act 3. It was about a young couple grappling with infidelity, of all things. Irony wasn't lost on me. My wife, Ellie, played the female lead. Grace, a woman torn between her husband and a mysterious stranger she meets at a garden center. No joke, a literal potted plant courtship. At first, I thought it was cute. Ellie had always been a theater kid at heart. Big expressions, dramatic pauses over cereal. When we first dated, she used to recite monologues instead of saying sorry. This was her first lead in years. She said she wanted to go method. No touching, no pet names. She asked if I could stop calling her babe for a while, said it broke character. She started journaling as Grace, reading books on emotional detachment, even wearing looser tops and more feminine but conflicted dresses, whatever that meant. And then the ring came off. It's just for rehearsal, she said. Uh-huh, I replied. But the rehearsals kept getting longer. The ring stayed off. She'd come home smelling like the dressing room. Makeup, sweat, whatever prop perfume they used. Her voice would shift depending on what scene they ran. One night she spoke in half whispers and stared into corners like she was haunted. Another night she slammed a drawer so hard I thought the track came off. She told me to stop reacting so literally. I told her I didn't remember auditioning for this performance. She didn't laugh. I met the cast once. Kind of a blur of scarves, statement glasses, and names like Lark and Seb and Rowan with an E. Everyone was very into boundaries and holding space, and calling cigarettes scene clarifiers. Then there was Theo. He played the mysterious stranger. The garden center guy. Tall, shaggy, ex-ballet dancer energy. One of those men who touches everyone's arm when he talks, like he's reassuring their skin it still exists. Theo was polite. Too polite. He shook my hand like he was sorry for something. He smiled at Ellie like they had a secret language. I knew then. You don't need texts or photos or receipts. You just need the way someone looks at your wife when they think you're just set dressing. But I didn't say anything. Yet. Instead, I started showing up to rehearsals. Quietly. Sat in the back row. Brought donuts. Said I was taking more interest in the arts. Ellie hated it. Said it made her self-conscious. That she needed safe rehearsal space. That art required risk, and my presence was anchoring her to domestic expectations. She said that like it was a bad thing. 2 weeks before opening night, I came home from work early. Ellie wasn't expecting me. There were 2 coffee mugs in the sink, a breakfast tray on the table with avocado toast and half a grapefruit. One of our monogrammed cloth napkins, the nice ones, folded neatly beside it. And Theo, wearing my robe, the navy one, the one I got for Christmas. He was walking out the back door, barefoot, whistling something jazzy, like he hadn't just stolen a scene in real life. I didn't say a word. He looked at me, paused, nodded like we were old friends sharing a sad inside joke, then left. I walked into the kitchen, picked up the mug he used. It still had steam coming off it. Smelled like cardamom. Ellie came out 10 minutes later. Hair damp. No makeup. She wore a towel like she didn't expect anyone home, like she hadn't planned on lying until she had time to think of something better. I asked her how rehearsal went. She blinked, then said, emotional. And that was it. No confession, no apology, no guilt. Just an actress sticking to the script. I nodded, then said I was thinking of auditioning. For what? She asked. I smiled. For the only role left. Because what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the original actor playing the husband had just dropped out. Family emergency. Casting call still open. And I had lines to deliver. I showed up to auditions in a gray hoodie and jeans. Understated. Casual. Like a guy just stopping by to drop off a headshot and ruin someone's career. The community theater was holding last-minute tryouts for the role of Jack, the husband in A Season for Grace. The original actor had dropped out unexpectedly, apparently something to do with kidney stones and a destination funeral. I didn't ask questions. I just signed my name on the clipboard, found a cold plastic seat, and waited. The audition scene was simple. A confrontation between Jack and Grace after she returns from an afternoon with a mysterious stranger. The script was loaded with passive-aggressive questions and barely disguised heartbreak, stuff I could now recite in my sleep, because I'd been living it. I read with one of the assistant directors, a soft-spoken guy with ironic socks and a clipboard. When it was my turn, I didn't act. I just spoke. I let my voice go flat. Calm. Disappointed, but still tethered to hope. That sharp emotional tension people call quiet devastation. Not because I'm a trained actor, but because I knew what the lines meant. I'd said them already. In my kitchen. In my car. In the 5 minutes after I saw Theo leave wearing my robe. By the end of the reading, the assistant director had stopped taking notes. He just looked up and said, "Wow, that felt real." "Yeah," I said. "It is." 3 days later, I got the call. I was cast. Officially. Ellie didn't find out until the first rehearsal. She walked into the theater in black leggings and an oversized cardigan, carrying a tote that said "Exist" loudly. She waved to Theo, kissed his cheek. Quickly, like it didn't count if no one made eye contact, and then froze when she saw me on stage, flipping through the script. "You're Jack?" she said. "Apparently," I said. I nailed the audition. Must have been something I really connected with. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't say anything. Couldn't. Not in front of the others. Not when everyone was clapping me on the back and calling me a late-stage hero of the cast. Theo, for his part, looked like someone had replaced his kale smoothie with diesel fuel. He tried to play it cool. Asked if I had any stage experience. I told him I'd been in a long-running drama recently. 8 years. Very immersive. No understudies. The director, Lark, a woman who wore velvet in summer and described blocking as emotional choreography, welcomed me with open arms. She said my emotional authenticity gave the character a rawness she hadn't seen before. Damn right it did. Rehearsals got tense. Every scene between me and Ellie had an undertone no one could quite name, but everyone could feel. Her lines felt thinner. My pauses were longer. We'd circle each other on stage like two animals pretending not to fight in front of the zookeeper. I played it warm, vulnerable. Jack, the husband, wasn't a villain. He was a man trying to hold on to someone who already packed her emotional bags. But slowly, scene by scene, I started tweaking. Just a line here or there. A hesitation added. A word changed. Instead of "Where were you?" I said, "Who did you become when you weren't with me?" Instead of "I miss us," I said, "You don't miss us. You miss the version of yourself that didn't feel guilty yet." The director loved it. "Keep playing," she said. "There's truth in it." Ellie didn't love it. She kept pulling me aside during breaks. "You're making this personal," she whispered once, gripping my arm too tight for it to be acting. I leaned in. "It is personal." That's when she realized something. She wasn't the only one who could use the stage to blur the lines. Week after week, I kept rehearsing and rewriting. I started getting to rehearsals early, staying late, offering to refine some of the emotional beats in the final act. The director was thrilled. The rest of the cast backed off. Ellie stayed quiet. Theo stopped talking to me completely, which was fine. He spoke enough with his hands anyway. Opening night crept closer, and I had a plan. See, the final scene in A Season for Grace originally ended with Grace making a tearful decision to stay with Jack. To rebuild. To find hope again. Touching. Predictable. Safe. But I had rewritten it. Not on paper. Not officially. Just in my head. Line by line. And on opening night, in front of a packed audience of suburban theatergoers, family friends, and local critics, I was going to perform my version. Live. No one knew. Not Ellie. Not the director. Not the tech crew. Just me. And one audio engineer I bribed with a Starbucks gift card and the promise of drama. What I'd prepared wasn't a scene. It was a monologue. A raw, unscripted, method-level reckoning. Because if Ellie wanted a performance, I was going to give her a standing ovation's worth. Just not for the reasons she hoped. Opening night felt like a wedding. Not ours. That ship had long since sailed into fog and forgotten vows. But it had that same nervous anticipation, the same subtle preening in the mirror, the same hum of low-stakes hope buzzing under everyone's breath. Backstage smelled like hairspray and panic. Ellie was pacing. Theo was doing vocal warm-ups that sounded like someone slowly drowning in a French cafe. The director floated around like a nervous ghost with glitter eyeliner. "Energy's good tonight," she kept saying. "Really electric. Something's brewing. You don't know the half of it, Lark." The theater was a modest 200-seater, renovated from an old church. The pews were replaced by folding cushioned chairs, but the ceiling still had stained glass and bad acoustics. The spotlight flickered every now and then like it had stage fright of its own. The crowd was sold out. I spotted Ellie's parents in the third row. Her dad had a wine buzz and a camera he didn't know how to turn off. My sister showed up with a flask and a moral compass set permanently to, go for it. I had everything set. The monologue was loaded in my head, line by line. The audio engineer, Chris, bless him, had the cue. He'd dim the house lights just enough to make the crowd lean in, then bring up the lone spotlight. No music, no ambient noise, just me, and Ellie, and the betrayal made flesh. Until then, though, I played the part. I went smooth. Theo delivered his lines like he was auditioning for an off-brand soap. Ellie, to her credit, gave it her all. She wore vulnerability like a costume, and she always wore her costumes well. My scenes landed. People laughed where they were supposed to, sighed when I looked longingly into the stage-left void. It was all warm-ups. Act 2 got spicier. Tension ramped. Dialogue crackled. You could hear the sniffles start, the old ladies clutching tissues, the couples gripping each other's hands. The story was peaking. And then came Act 3, the final scene. Grace, Ellie, stands in the kitchen, a modest set with a fake sink and a wall clock permanently stuck at 5:17, while Jack, yours truly, confronts her one last time. Originally, the script had us reconciling. An embrace. A vow. Fade to black. Instead, I stepped into the spotlight. "Grace," I said. She turned. Still in character. Still expecting our usual lines. But I didn't give them to her. I stepped forward. One beat longer than usual. "Do you know what's worse than being lied to?" I asked, voice low. Ellie blinked. Confused. "The moment you realized the lie was so lazy," I continued, "that the liar didn't even bother making it believable." There was a murmur from the audience. I kept going. "You said you needed space to explore. That you were building something truthful. That it was for the character. The story. The audience." I turned to the crowd. She said she needed to stop being touched. Said it interrupted her process. Said I needed to stop acting like her husband. I looked back at Ellie. "But here's the thing, Grace. I wasn't acting." Ellie's face went pale. This wasn't in the script. Theo shifted backstage. I could see him from the wings. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened slightly like he was trying to remember his cue, or if he should sprint. I stepped closer to Ellie. "You rehearsed betrayal like it was method. You stripped off vows like stage clothes. You invited another man into our scene, and forgot I still knew all the lines." Someone in the crowd gasped. Ellie tried to speak. I cut her off with a raised hand. Still in character. Still technically performing. I could hear Chris cueing the lights. The theater dimmed. A tight spotlight on me now. Everything else vanished. I rewrote the ending. I said, because the original one lied. Another spotlight came up, on Ellie now. Frozen. Her eyes glassy. "She doesn't stay with him," I said. "She leaves. But not with the stranger. Not with flowers and redemption. No, she leaves alone." Then I paused. Let it breathe. And I stepped into the most dangerous line of all. "And the husband?" I said. "He turns the whole story into something better. Something people actually want to watch." I stepped back. Stage lights flared. Curtain dropped. Blackout. And the crowd, bless them, erupted. It wasn't polite applause. It was confused, startled, excited noise. That awkward thrill of watching something real happen where fiction was supposed to be. Like seeing a wedding cake collapse onto the bride's dress and not knowing whether to clap or call someone. Ellie didn't come backstage. Theo disappeared. Lark just stared at me like I'd murdered the script and buried the body under the stage. I bowed. Twice. By the time I stepped out the stage door, someone had already uploaded a clip to TikTok. Caption: "This actor just hijacked a live play and destroyed his cheating wife." It hit 300,000 views before I even got home. And I wasn't done yet. Because the real curtain? That was still about to rise. The thing about going viral is that you don't get a warning. No email. No pop-up. Just a sudden tidal wave of chaos with your face surfing the front. I woke up the next morning to 27 unread messages, 3 missed calls from a number labeled unknown contact, and a YouTube notification. Your video has received 106,304 views in 12 hours. Correction, someone's video of me. It was a shaky handheld recording from row 4. My monologue, nearly intact. It didn't even catch my best lighting angle, but it had heart and betrayal, and the kind of slow-burn theatrical exposure that apparently makes social media light up like Vegas. Comments were rolling in faster than I could scroll. Is this real? He deserves an Emmy and her therapist's address. My jaw is still on the floor. This is Shakespeare with petty vengeance. I'm obsessed. The title was perfect. Husband hijacks stage to call out cheating wife in live play ending. Crowd loses it. I didn't post it, but I had my suspicions. And those suspicions were confirmed when I got a DM from an ex-wife unscripted. Real name? Dahlia Klein. Bio: divorce survivor. Betrayal documentarian. Host of the Other Half podcast. I clicked her profile. Pin video. My therapist husband slept with a client, so I started a podcast. Oh yeah, I remembered her name now. Dahlia was Theo's ex-wife. The same woman Ellie used to call too intense. The one she claimed was obsessed with retroactive justice. Turns out, retroactive justice has great SEO. Dahlia's podcast had a cult following, mostly scorned spouses, disillusioned romantics, and people who love their drama with timestamps and receipts. She messaged me a single sentence. Ready to rehearse your next monologue? We set up a call. She didn't waste time. Everyone wants to know what happened after the curtain fell, she said, voice smooth like she'd been coached by NPR and Vengeance. You willing to tell them? I said yes, because honestly, I had nothing to lose. Ellie had already packed a bag, said she was going to stay with a friend for a few days. The friend's name didn't need to be said. His robe had already done the introduction. When I asked if she wanted to talk about what happened on stage, she said, "You violated my artistic boundaries." I said, "You violated our marriage." We didn't hug. She left while I was microwaving leftover Chinese food. I didn't stop her. Back to Dahlia. We recorded the episode 2 days later. She called it Curtain Call, how a husband took down a love scene in real life. I told the full story. From the weird method acting, excuses to the moment I saw Theo carry out the breakfast tray. I held nothing back. Didn't scream. Didn't cry. Just told it straight. Deadpan. Dahlia was a great listener. Better interviewer. At one point, she asked, "When did you realize the stage wasn't just pretend anymore?" I said, "When I saw her kissing him in the same kitchen where she'd been rehearsing our future." Silence. Then, damn. The episode dropped the next week. It exploded. Not in a fireworks way. In a slow, calculated wildfire way. People clipped my quotes. Shared them. One TikTok used my monologue audio over a video of a Barbie doll burning in a dollhouse kitchen. Another one staged a parody using sock puppets. But here's where it gets wild. Netflix called. Well, their unscripted content division called. A producer named Vaughn who sounded like he drank matcha through a stainless steel straw. He said, "Hey man, wild question. Have you ever considered expanding this story into a limited series?" I thought he was joking. He wasn't. Apparently, The Other Half had serious underground pull, and the stage monologue had hit all the right demographics. Theater nerds, betrayed spouses, true crime girlies, even drama students who thought it was a genius fourth wall obliteration. I asked what kind of show he meant. Something raw, he said. Not just the cheating. The whole unraveling. Maybe a hybrid format. Some reenactments. Some confessional stuff. You'd be the narrator. I asked if they'd want Ellie involved. No offense, he said, but we've seen her monologue. Yours sold the seats. I didn't say yes right away, but I didn't say no either. Meanwhile, the community theater tried to clean up the PR mess. Lark issued a statement that read like it had been ghostwritten by a guidance counselor. We celebrate art. We do not condone personal attacks performed live without approval. However, the response has demonstrated the enduring power of theater. Translation: we hated it, but we're selling out every night now. Theo resigned from the production. No announcement. Just gone. Rumor is he's doing a mindfulness retreat in Sedona and temporarily surrendered his therapy license to avoid review. Ellie went dark on social media. Blocked me. Blocked Dahlia. But not before someone screen capped her story that read, "Some people don't understand that vulnerability is sacred." Comments under that were unforgiving. And me? I sat on my back porch, phone in one hand, cold beer in the other, and opened the latest email from Netflix. Subject line: Let's talk about the other half. Your story deserves a stage. I clicked reply. Typed 2 words. I'm listening. Here's what nobody tells you about being the face of modern betrayal. The emails never stop. After Netflix announced a development deal, not a full green light yet, just enough to put their claws in me, I became the internet's favorite monologuing underdog. People thought I was brave. Some thought I was cruel. A surprising number thought I was available. One message simply read, "My husband also forgot his ring for 6 months. Where can I buy tickets to your one-man show?" Another offered me $500 to roast my ex live at her wedding. Tempting, but I had a more strategic stage to prepare for. Vaughn, the Netflix exec, paired me with a showrunner named Carson, who wore expensive sneakers and spoke exclusively in high-concept metaphors. He said things like, "You're not just a character, you're the crack in the fourth wall." The moment truth punches fiction in the teeth. We met in a glassy office overlooking downtown LA. The view looked expensive and mildly depressed. Carson brought oat milk lattes and a folder labeled, "The Other Half, Pilot Treatment, Confidential." Inside was my life, broken into acts. ACT-I, the ringless wife. ACT-2, the breakfast tray. ACT-3, the monologue heard round the internet. ACT-4, the offer. ACT-V, TBD, the rise. I stared at the folder and realized I had become my own genre. Carson smiled like a proud father at a school play where the kid actually remembered all their lines. "I want your voice," he said. Unfiltered. Cold. Strategic. Like if Divorce was written by Aaron Sorkin but directed by Scorsese. I nodded like I understood. I didn't. But I did know this. I wanted to own my ending. I said, "Let me write it." He paused. "Like script it?" "No," I said. "Narrate it." "But my narration. I write the words. You can polish them later." He smiled. "That's the revenge arc talking. I love it." And so, for the next 2 weeks, I became a full-time ghostwriter for my own life. Every morning, I'd sit at the same kitchen table where Ellie used to highlight scripts. Same coffee ring stains. Same chipped mug from our honeymoon in Prague. Only now, it was my laptop. My story. My revisions. I wrote in scenes. Recreated the moment I found Theo's receipt from the cafe near our house. Timestamped the same hour Ellie was supposedly at hot yoga. I even included the part where I called the cafe pretending to be Theo's assistant, asking for a copy for tax purposes. The barista laughed. Said, he left his scarf too. Classic Theo. Overshares and accessories. I wrote the monologue scene beat by beat, describing the exact expressions on Ellie's face. The way her jaw set, then loosened, then froze. I wrote about the silence in the theater. The exhale the crowd didn't know they were holding. I wrote the aftermath. The podcast episode with Dahlia. The media emails. The vague apology text from Ellie's mother. We didn't know, but we hope you land on your feet. I did more than land. I staged, rehearsed, and turned the whole damn thing into spectacle. When I submitted the first draft, Carson called me at midnight. "Dude," he said, breathless. "You wrote revenge like a rom-com, but for sociopaths. This is gold." He pitched a new framing device. Intercut the story with my actual therapy sessions, pre- and post-betrayal. "But we dramatize them," he said. "Actors play you and Theo and Ellie. Real lines. Real breakdowns." I hesitated. Too invasive? "No," I said. "Just make sure the actor playing me doesn't cry. Ever." He laughed. "Ice cold." "Exactly." Netflix flew me out to scout locations. They were thinking of filming in Vancouver, cheaper taxes. I didn't care, as long as the kitchen set matched the one where Theo wore my robe. Meanwhile, Ellie resurfaced. She posted a Notes app statement on Instagram. Classic move. "I believe in art as catharsis. What happened between us was complex. I wish him peace." The comments weren't kind. One user wrote, "Girl, he served you on opening night and Netflix ordered seconds." Theo didn't say anything publicly, but I heard through mutuals he was consulting for a private wellness app now. Translation: doing damage control with incense and breath work. I started seeing a therapist too. A real one. Name was Henry. Ex-military. No nonsense. He had a clock with no numbers. Just the word, now, repeated 12 times. At our first session, he asked, "What do you want out of this?" I said, "Nothing." He raised an eyebrow. I added, "That's not a metaphor. I genuinely don't want anything anymore. No closure. No apologies. Just silence." He nodded once. That's a start. I liked him. Didn't even mind when he pointed out that scripting your ex-wife's humiliation in front of a live audience might be performative control. I said yeah, and it sold tickets. He didn't laugh, but he wrote something down. Probably sociopath, but charming. A few days later, Dahlia called. I heard the show's getting greenlit, she said. You ready to have your face on billboards? I thought you hated actors, I said. She laughed. I do, but you're not an actor anymore. What am I? A mirror, she said. One people can't stop looking into, even when it burns. There was a pause. Also, she added, Netflix wants me as the podcast voiceover for episode 5. Hope that's cool. I grinned. Perfect. Ellie used to say that theater was about reflection, showing the audience something true, even if it hurt. Well, this mirror cuts deep. And the show was just about to premiere. Opening night came wrapped in fake gold and real sweat. Everyone acted like they weren't terrified, which meant, of course, that they absolutely were. Theater kids never age. They just trade acne for imposter syndrome and call it process. Ellie showed up in a silk robe and curlers at 4:17 p.m., holding a Starbucks and zero eye contact. She looked straight through me as if I were stage decor. I gave her the same courtesy. Two-can-play method. Theo wasn't in the green room, which probably meant he was somewhere backstage doing warm-ups and vocal fry with the newer cast members. Ever since the morning I saw him leave our house in my robe, he'd avoided being in a room alone with me. Cowardice, ironically, is excellent cardio. The show was scheduled for 7:30. Audience loaded in slow, mostly bored couples, and a few local critics ready to hate it unless it made them feel seen. We got a soft clap after curtain call during the Thursday preview, and someone tweeted that the lead actor's eyes say divorce, and I respect that. I was ready. The director, Pam, bless her deluded optimism, gave a long, weepy pep talk about serving the truth of the story and channeling the pain, but with generosity. She had no idea what I'd prepared. See, 3 days before the premiere, I'd convinced the board to let me rewrite the final monologue. Technically, it was still in development, and I promised it would stay true to the themes. What I didn't say is that the new ending wasn't the play's ending. It was mine. I printed 3 copies. One for the sound booth, one for the prompter, and one tucked into my inner blazer pocket, just in case. At 7:32, the house lights dimmed. At 7:34, Ellie delivered her first line with perfect diction and a hollow soul. And by 9:06, the audience was exactly where I wanted them, lulled into safety, into the illusion that what they were watching was just fiction. I stepped into my final scene. In the original version, I was supposed to deliver a gentle reconciliation speech. Something about finding each other again in the ruins. Ellie would wipe a stage tear. We'd clasp hands. Fade to black. Cue applause. Champagne. But when the spotlight hit me, center stage, full monologue, I didn't speak from the script. I looked straight at Ellie. She blinked. I could see her realize. And I began. You told me the ring didn't fit the character. But the robe did, huh? A ripple from the crowd. Quiet. Sharp. You said vulnerability was part of the process. You said trust me, it's only acting. You said you'd come home, eventually. I turned to the audience. Let me tell you what she brought home instead. A man in another man's robe, eating the eggs I bought, in the house I pay for, under the roof built from monologues like this. Ellie stood frozen. Theo, somewhere in the wings, probably gripping a curtain and praying the fire alarm would go off. They told me art imitates life. But I figured, why not let life outperform art? I pulled the final page from my pocket. This isn't fiction anymore. This is a confession. And then I read it. Every line, every detail. The receipt from the morning yoga session. The missing wine glass I later found in her car. The playbill from another theater's show, one she claimed she was researching, but had no ticket for. And then, the final blow. I held up a photo. It was the dressing room mirror. Scrawled across it, in red lipstick, was a line Ellie had written in rehearsal and forgot to erase. You always were the truth eventually. I smiled. Consider this your fitting. Blackout. The audience didn't clap at first. They didn't know if it was real. Until the house lights came up, and Ellie stormed off stage. Then they stood. It wasn't a standing ovation. It was a standing question mark. And I was fine with that. Outside, the producer's assistant pulled me aside. Netflix just posted the teaser, she said. The other half is trending on Twitter. I nodded. Make sure they spell my name right. Ellie never spoke to me again. Not directly, anyway. She posted some cryptic poetry on her acting page about the cruelty of control disguised as courage. It got 38 likes. Theo moved to Chicago. Last I heard, he's teaching improv to startup executives. Deserved. And me? I perform now. Not just on stage, but in rooms that matter. In boardrooms. In writers' rooms. In podcasts where the host whispers, "You really said that?" And I nod, sipping something expensive. And I always tell them the same thing. I didn't plan the betrayal, but I scripted the response. So yeah, she stopped wearing her ring. Said it was for a role. Turned out, it was my audition. And I nailed it. Subscribe to the channel